Salutations, fellow nerds. I'm Rick Y, and today is October 6th, 2025. Lawsuits have officially begun here in California after Donald Trump tried to federalize our state's National Guard and deploy them at his will. This comes after a federal judge barred the Trump administration from deploying Oregon's Guard to its own city of Portland, ruling that the protests there didn't meet any lawful standard for the action. Luckily, Judge Karin Immergut issued a temporary restraining order blocking any National Guard deployment to Oregon, no matter the state that they're from. For now, that move seems to be frozen, but the fact that we're already even here should terrify everyone. And it's time to talk about why he's doing this, because it does not bode well for the country's future. Now let's address the giant hypocritical elephant in the room, and honestly, it's probably the part that irritates me the most. For years, the loudest, most obnoxious people in the country have been the Second Amendment, Tea Party, small government, fiscal conservatives. If a Democrat farted too loudly, it was government overreach. Every other week, Obama or Clinton was supposedly coming to take your guns and install Sharia law. Sometimes both before lunch. These were the same folks who lost their minds over Michelle Obama suggesting kids eat healthier, or over the Affordable Care Act, giving people more affordable health care options. Remember the death panels hysteria? Conservative politicians and media swore the ACA would create panels deciding who was worthy of care, which wasn't true, but it dominated the conversation. And it did so during a time when we should have been debating our foreign policy and military adventurism in the Middle East. Even with that said, the Obama State Department still deserves scrutiny. But at least we are arguing about real policy back then and not this circus. Now, those same people, the small government, liberty-loving fiscal conservatives, have either gone silent or are actively cheering a president trying to seize control of state guards and use them against American citizens. Why? Well, there are a few theories, and none of them are particularly all that cash money. One hypothesis is that he's doing this to provoke civilians. He's already done it in LA. The idea is to ratchet up the tension until cities become powder kegs. One wrong move and suddenly he's forced to invoke the Insurrection Act, legalizing curfews, military policing, and domestic troop deployments. Another theory is that this could be retaliation. With the government shutdown dragging on, this could be payback against Democrats refusing to raise costs on their own constituents just by keeping billionaire tax breaks intact. Probably the most chilling theory that I have heard is that he's normalizing the sight of armed troops in U.S. cities. Once that becomes normalized, it's just a short leap to 2026, election season, when wink and grin intimidation becomes part of the process. Picture it. You're walking into a polling station and troops are just outside with rifles, watching for bad actors. You don't have to be paranoid to see where that goes. So no matter which reason you pick, the silence from the states' rights crowd is deafening. In the middle of a government shutdown, the federal government is now being sued by multiple states for acting unconstitutionally. Troops are being sent against fellow Americans while not even being guaranteed to be paid. ICE? Absolutely. But here in California, Trump pulled back the Guard literally a day before they'd have qualified for extra pay. And economically, a year ago, we weren't even close to this level of dysfunction. Every economic metric is negative. The so-called fiscal conservatives are nowhere to be found. The economy's in the gutter. The only semi-positive stat, federal revenue, exists because we are getting taxed more. Jobs are down, the GDP is shaky, inflation is up. Prices are worse now than under Biden, and now the federal government is bailing out Argentinian farmers while ours are losing family farms that have been around for generations. And the cherry on top, the commander-in-chief and his talk show host defense attorney summoned generals from around the world to scold them about their appearances and preach the return of hazing. The same guy who dodged service is now telling combat veterans to toughen up and train for urban combat in U.S. cities. And again, the small government, states' rights crowd. This is what conservative policy has delivered. Not stability, not freedom, just chaos. And I know it's easy to blame a handful of Democrats in the Senate. That's always the easy route. But if all you want is easy, don't expect to be taken seriously in this forum ever again. When history looks back on this far-right fever dream, on the division and the hatred and the impotence disguised as strength, conservatives will have nobody but to blame but themselves. You spent years fear-mongering about tyrannical government overreach, and now that it's here, you're sitting idly by. You've become Chicken Littles who couldn't muster up the spine to stand up when the country needed you the most. And if you're still wrapping yourself in the American flag while refusing to defend what it stands for, I hope you didn't dodge service like your dear leader did, because if you spent an entire life dodging responsibility, what's left? Embarrassment, shame, and it's exactly how fascists get away with it, because the people who claim to hate tyranny can't seem to recognize when it's staring them in the face. So maybe think about what team you're cheering for before you have to explain it to your grandkids. Anyway, y'all come back now. You hear?